Thank you so much, my wonderful viewers, for taking the time out of your day to check out this latest episode of Ask RGD. If you are new to this channel or you are new to this video series, Ask RGD works very, very simply. You submit to me via email, via YouTube comments, via Facebook Messenger, via any of the other various methods of contact listed down in the description, your guitar or guitar-related question, and I answer said guitar or guitar-related question in a video. So, today's guitar or guitar-related question comes from Mr. Paul Illingworth. Paul says, what are your thoughts on the Spider 4 120 2x10 combo? Paul, thank you so very much for submitting your question. And the reason why I chose this question is because I've been getting this question a lot lately, or along these lines. People ask me all the time, what's your thoughts on this modeling amp? What's your thoughts on? A lot of people ask me what my thoughts on the Boss Katanas. Pick your favorite modeling amp. Somebody's probably asked my thoughts on it. And usually when it's a very specific model, like in this case the Spider 4 120, usually that means that you've already bought it or you are seriously considering buying one. So I'll start with that one. As it relates to the Spider 4, the Spider 4 series itself, and this goes for the 120 or the 75 or the 150, or all, basically the entire line. I think sound-wise, tone-wise, they were a vast improvement over the Spider 3s. The Spider 3s were the current version of the Spider series, Line 6 Spider series amplifiers when I first got into the MI business as a career. And we sold quite a bit. We sold quite a few of those. But honestly, I was never really all that impressed with them. Honestly, tone-wise, I never saw much of a difference between the Spider 2s and the Spider 3s. Honestly, unless you're to this day, unless I'm looking directly on the on the amp panel itself, and I'm looking specifically for the Roman numeral to tell me what series it is, I really can't tell just by looking at it. The Spider 4, from an aesthetic standpoint, they changed the design of them, to where they could, you could physically eyeball them and identify them a little bit better. But more importantly than that, the biggest improvement that they made with those amplifiers was the technology had advanced by the time that they came out with the Spider 4s. So I thought and I did hear several people get some really, really good tones out of them, for what they are. Now, if you bought the head and the 412 cabinet out of that series, that 412 cabinet, they advertised it as labeled loaded with Celestions, and for all intents and purposes of what they were, but they were loaded with the Celestion. I think it was the Rocket 50s, which are basically Celestions bottom of the line speaker. They're really not very good speakers. But in Line 6's defense, number one, part of the marketing strategy behind that was to keep costs down. Because those amps are meant to market towards a specific audience, and and affordability is a big part of that marketing strategy. And the other thing is, for a modeling amp, choosing the right speaker that can accommodate every single tone inside of a modeling amp, especially something with as many tones as a Line 6, is next to impossible. The FR stuff that's currently out nowadays is probably the closest anybody has gotten. And again, while I'm on this subject, along those lines with the Spider 5s, the Spider 5 series, which they just came out with a Mark II here in the last 6 months or so. Because there was a few things that they admittedly didn't get right on the first generation of the Spider 5s. And regardless of be the first or the second generation of the Spider 5s, again, technology is advanced, and I think those amps are, they're sounding better and better all the time. In the instance of the Boss Katanas, which are the other very popular modeling amp that are out on the market today, the Katanas are unique for a couple of things. Number one, they are really about the only modeling amp, and I'm calling it a modeling amp because it was designed to compete in that arena. I'll elaborate more on what I'm referring to here on that in a minute. But they're the only modeling amp that I know of that was also designed to really, really, take pedals really, really well. Being Boss are primarily known for their effects pedals, that was probably a pretty wise, pretty wise engineering decision on their part. The other thing that I find unique about the Katanas is the story behind them. Boss originally designed that amp just because they wanted something in that, in the modeling amp arena. They just wanted to be able to compete in that arena. They didn't have any kind of crazy expectations. Their name alone, they knew was going to sell some amplifiers for them. And, beyond that, I don't know really that they had too much in the way of expectations. Well, they were released, and all of a sudden they get hugely popular. And next thing they know, they're the best-selling amp in that in that entire class by a lot. Which was a title that Line 6 had held for many, many years. And all of a sudden, Boss now are the top dog, and their production is having trouble keeping up with the demand. Finally, the two have caught up to each other, and they're able to manage that demand a lot better now. But when they first launched, they were a really, really hot item, and for good reason. Because again, in the affordable modeling amp arena, the Katanas are fine amplifiers. They sound. They do everything that the user expects them to do, and they sound really, really good. I know lots of pro-level players that gig with them. Some of them use it as their backup amp. Some of them use it as the amp that they just, that they take with them for smaller gigs, or just, on a night that they don't feel like lugging the big tube combo around. Whatever it may be, they've served a lot of different purposes and actually catered to a much wider market than those types of amps really had ever done so before. And I think as long as your expectations are reasonable, in other words, it's not a Dumble. It's not going to sound like a Dumble, or it's not going to sound that good or anywhere near it. If your expectations are reasonable, that this is a solid state digital modeling amplifier meant to fit a certain budget, and cover a wide range of tones and do so relatively well, then I think you will be very, very happy with it. Now, as far as my own personal use, modelers, be it modeling amps or effects processors or any of that stuff, I've never really gotten along with very well. They're just not my thing. I find myself tweaking knobs and spending way more time doing this than I do actually playing through them. And for me, and I guess I'm probably showing my age a little bit here, but for me, it gets frustrating, and all of a sudden I don't want to play guitar anymore, and I certainly don't want to play it out of this amp that I'm having a tough time figuring out. They're just not for me. They never have been, and I've owned a few processors. I've owned a modeling amp or two. Like I said, they fit the audience that they're specifically designed for very, very well. I'm just not part of that audience. Is all. So, but do I have anything negative to say about them? No, absolutely not. I think, in the instance of the Katanas, I would be a fan of those just because I'm such a huge Boss fan. In the instance of the Line 6s, particularly, I really do like the sounds I've heard out of the Spider 5s. But even then, I heard a lot of people get some pretty decent tones out of the Spider 4s when they were current. So, the only thing that I would suggest is, if you're looking at the 120, that's the 210 model. The only thing I would suggest is step up the budget just a little bit, which on the used market is not going to be much. If you can step it up to the 150 model, which will get you 212s, I think you'll be glad that you did, because that extra 30 watts in a solid state amp isn't going to make that much of a difference. But the 212-inch speakers and the frequency range, the additional frequency range that they will cover, I think will. Paul, again, thank you very much for submitting your question. I always enjoy doing these Ask RGD videos. This is a fantastic way for me to, kind of interact directly with you, my audience, a little bit more. So, if you haven't already, please consider hitting the subscribe button to this channel. Every subscription really does help out a lot, and really, really does go a long way towards helping to grow this channel, which of course is a goal of mine. As always, I will post links down in the description to all the amplifiers that were discussed in this video. Please don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on what your favorite modeling amp might be, or if you like them at all or you don't like them at all. Maybe there's a few of you out there that are like me and just never been able to figure them out. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.